Hey, Bill Scythe here with Neptune Clean. I just wanted to do a quick little video here on a remote automatic downstream box. Now, it's been done on the internet a bunch of times, and I just wanted to try to improve upon what's already out there. So it's not my invention, but it's a pretty awesome little tool, especially if you work alone and you want to turn your downstream, get it more proficient, because you can remotely turn the soap off, turn it back on again. That way you're out there, you don't have to go back to the truck and stuff. So anyway, I got a little setup behind me on my, I'm at home in my home garage, and I did something I think is pretty cool. I laid it all out on a piece of plywood so that you could see the wiring and how it goes. And then once I show you guys that stuff, then I'll go back and I'll actually build it into the box, kind of like the other videos that are online folks have done. And so anyway, hang on, let me switch things around and I'll show you what I've got so far. All right, so I've got everything laid out on a piece of plywood. So I thought this would be a pretty good way for you guys to see all the wiring. It gets kind of confusing. I've been watching other guys do it, and they're doing it as they're assembling the box, and it gets kind of confusing. You're not quite sure which wire goes where. I'm sure you guys can figure out how to install it in the box, and I'll go through that as well. I'll go ahead and drill all the holes and place everything and show you guys how I actually put it together so it's ready to mount on the truck and hook up to your battery. But what I've got here on my bench is I've got a 12-volt battery for one of my drill drivers, and essentially this is mimicking one of the batteries on your rig. And basically what you do is essentially you got this on-off switch, you'll turn it on, and then you have this handy dandy remote, and that's hooked up. Essentially it communicates with this receiver, and the receiver essentially has the inputs and the outputs. The input from the battery, essentially with the switch controlling that, and then the outputs going to the light and to the valve. So when you hit the on button, bam, lights come on, the strobe is on so that you can see that you're soaping. You don't have to walk all the way back to the truck. You heard the valve come on. It opened the valve, so now bleach is flowing to your downstream injector. Hit the off button, strobe light goes off, the valve shuts, shutting off the soap, and now you can rinse all you want. Never had to go back to the truck. So the way I've got this rig set up, probably the most complicated thing about it is the switch. So I'm going to start with the outputs, okay? The valve and the light are your outputs. So essentially, you've got a red and a black for each one of those. Essentially, you just wire them together, put them on a connector with a little eyelet hole in it, and that's what goes on here. You got a positive and you got a negative. So the blacks go into the negative, the reds go into the positive, and that's pretty much it. Now, coming from the battery, all right, coming up, you got your ground. Now, see, I've actually, this white, this is actually, you just think it's black. It's supposed to be black. I actually put a piece of black shrink tubing on it so that it shows black. I should have done the same over here, but it's the same wire. So black here, red here, but it's black on black. So you got the negative coming from the battery going to the negative on here, and then you connect the black from the switch. Same thing, you put those in the same connector, it goes on the negative side of this receiver. The white from the switch is not being used, all right? The green from the switch gets connected to the hot from the battery. So the positive from the battery and the green go together from the switch, and then you take the red and the yellow from the switch, put them together in the same connector, and connect that to the positive side of the receiver. And that's it. It's pretty simple. Next, I'll go ahead and take this all apart, and we'll start drilling some holes in this box, and I'll show you how to put it together in here as well. Hang on. Hey, all right, I'm back and I'm ready to start building the box. So I want to start with the lid first. So the strobe light is going to go in the top of this lid, right? Because the way I'm going to mount this on my truck is, I'm going to mount. Get a hold of it here. I'm going to mount it with this is going to be the top here. So you can see this section here. You got the screw holes on the sides. I figured that's the best way to mount it. So that essentially is top for me. And this lid has got a name on it. I guess the manufacturer's name. I'm just going to make that straight up, and that'll be the top. So here is the top of the lid. That's where the strobe is going to center itself on. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find out how wide this lid is, basically find the center point. So it's about 6 3/4 of an inch long. So I'm just going to mark the center point on that. So almost 7, so just under 3.5 inches I think is going to be center point. And I'm not really that concerned that it's perfect, but then I also want it to be down far enough so that it doesn't doesn't interfere with the the gasket on the back. So just got to make sure it's down far enough, and that looks pretty good right there. So this, what I did is I measured. There's a little indentation in the back of this thing in order for this to sit flat, because it comes with a gasket. This gasket essentially, you just kind of feed it in through here, and it goes on there, and there you go. It sits in the thing. So I'm going to go ahead and drill a 3/8 inch hole. I could probably go a little smaller, but I just want to make sure that when I cinch this thing down, that the hole doesn't mix. And then what I'll do is I'll put it on there, and I'll mark the holes for the screws, and kind of go from there. So anyway. I'm going to start this off with a 3/8 inch drill. Get a hole in there. I'm going to take it off my bench here. I don't want to put a hole in my bench. All right, let's clean that up a little bit. I think that looks pretty good. See if I can get this. All right, that looks nice. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take the gasket off here for a sec, feed this wire through, get the strobe light to sit on there the way I want it, and mark a couple more holes for the screws. Just trying to get it to be as level as possible. Again, I'm not looking for perfection on here. Functionality is good with me. All right, got my holes marked. I think I'll go with a little smaller drill bit this time. I think probably a 9/64 inch bit will be just fine. I can always go a little bigger if I have to. I'd rather start off small, and then get bigger if I got to. So. There's that one. And I wiped dry erase marker. Trying to get a permanent marker. I couldn't find my Sharpie, so I'm using a dry erase. And what did I do? I wiped the mark right off. I'm an idiot. Anyway. Stick it back on there, remark it. There we go. That's good. Starting over. All right, that looks good. Make sure my screws are put down in there. These strobes, it actually came in a pack of like 4 or 5 strobes, and it still wasn't that expensive. I think it was only like $10 for a pack of 4 of them, but I couldn't find a single one. So you never know. I guess I got enough to, yeah. See, these screws are just a little bigger than that. So let me make that hole slightly larger than what I got. Bump it up to 5/32 should do the trick. And just lost my sword. Can't go into battle without your Spartan sword. All right, got the gasket on here, and then the gasket, it's got holes already cut in it. You just got to pop the little holes out. All right, that looks good. Put the little nut that comes with it on the back. That way I'll get it to set in place, and I'll get the other one in before I tighten it both down. Little gasket on there. It's pretty handy. There we go. The nut on the back. And this thing is good as installed. All right, I'm just going to hold it while I screw it down with my screwdriver. And we're pretty much done with mounting this light. And again, you don't have to Gorilla Grip it down, but it's on there. I think it looks pretty good. You know, if you wanted to, if you didn't trust the gasket that's on here and you're still trying to waterproof this thing, you could always put a little silicone in here. I'm not going to do that. I think the gasket is just fine. Again, the only reason I don't want a silicone is if I have to replace this strobe light, I can. It'd be easy. Heck, I got 4 more of them. So, but I tell you what I will do while I'm in here is I'm going to go ahead and strip this wire and get it ready for a connector. And I'll get that thing. I need a little more of that sheath off there. All right, just get that prepped. All right, set it off. Now what I want to do is bring this box over, and again, a bunch of guys have done this before, and I'm not going to change it up at all. I'm going to pretty much do the same thing they did. So this valve is going to sit in here like this. Actually, I'm going to turn it around like this, so it's got a little bit of a standoff. And then when I put the barbed fittings on, I'm going to have to drill some holes here and here. That's what we're going to have to figure out next. So I'm going to go ahead and put these fittings on. I like to use the True Blue pipe dope. I think this is the best stuff for anything that's not really under pressure. Obviously, you can't use this stuff on any of your pressurized fittings on your pressure washer. Clean that up a little bit. Now I need a rag. You know, they don't have to be super tight. I would just snug them up. I wouldn't put a whole lot of torque on it. This pipe dope will do the trick, and then you just got to cinch it down just slightly tighter than hand tight, and I think you're fine. Just to feel a little bit of resistance on it. That's it, pretty much like that. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of sit this in here, get an idea of where these holes are going to be. And yeah, I might try this. See if I can get this. Sometimes if you put a little bit of marker on here, you just kind of slide it over and it'll put a mark on the. Yeah, it worked. Let me put a little bit more on there. All right, I did the trick. Let's do the other side. I'll need a little more on that one. The trick is to get enough excess on here and touch the sides before it dries. There we go, good enough. All right, now I just got to, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a small hole in there first, just to kind of figure out, you know, from the inside, and then I can come back and put the size hole I need. All right, so what I'm doing here, the holes I'm going to drill are going to be for the hose to come through. So I've got 1/4 inch hose. So it's just this reinforced 1/4 inch inside diameter, 1/2 inch outside diameter hose. And so these holes are going to be 5/16 so that I can put this grommet in there. So this grommet is basically the perfect size for this 1/2 inch ID hose, right? So I'm going to put on a 5/8 drill bit. And drill this thing out. Paddle bit is not ideal, but it's all I had. Could not find a 9/16 drill bit in my collection. I know I got one somewhere, but it is what it is. All right, but it still does a nice clean cut. You just want to be sure you can get that grommet to fit in there. And you don't want it too big or the grommet's going to slip out. So just go slow. So it doesn't rip out the other side. All right, I think that's probably going to be okay. All right, looks pretty good. That one's perfect. This one, it's close enough. The good thing about it is these aren't all the way up against the side. So now I got these grommets, and they should. Now this box is pretty thick. I couldn't find grommets that, you know, had a really thick center piece, you know, so this may not work. You know, it's a trial and error thing here. So I didn't test this fit. I knew this box was kind of thick, but I was hoping that the grommet would stretch a little bit and go in here. So I may have to go back to the drawing board and try to find grommets that have that. There's a little ring in between the two sides. It kind of looks like a donut almost, but the center piece is indented to allow this to fit around the material. And as you can see, I'm kind of struggling with it right now. Yeah, this grommet's not going to work. It's not big enough. See what I'm saying? This piece right here, how thin it is. The wall of this box is so much thicker than that. So, all right, no big deal. We'll get a different grommet, get that fit in there. I mean, even if I had to go with just the hose inside there, it would be, you know, still a nice fit. But I do have I ordered some grommets. They're coming. I'll just have to put them in later. But anyway, let's see. So the next hole I got to drill is for the switch. And so the way that my truck is laid out, I want to put the switch on this side here. So as I'm facing, it's on my right side. And that 5/8 hole is actually perfect. And I'm just going to put it up a little higher, like right about up in here. So just above it. And again, I'm not worried about the exact placement of it, i.e. no measurement involved. And the great thing about this whole project is that, this box is actually probably the most expensive piece in the whole setup. So if I have to, I got to just go buy another box, start over. But I think it's going to be fine. Let's see. All right, got this. I'm going to go ahead and put this switch in here now. I just want to look at my connection real quick on how I'm putting this in here. Make sure that when I go to put this in, I've got it the right way. All right, good. So I'm going to try to connect it where this piece is straight up and down. And there's you can see there's a little red O-ring right there, kind of acts as a gasket for this piece. So I may need to clean this up a little bit. There we go. That's nice. And really, this thing can just be hand tight, and I think it's fine, right? So there we go. Now the little button's in there. It's a perfect little fit, and all I got to do is plug my connector into it, and we're good to go. All right, so the next piece, I think I got all those holes drilled. The next thing I got to do is, tell you what, before we go there, a couple things I want to do. I want to strip this valve wire. Get these things prepped. These things are really small. That's the only thing I don't like about this valve is these wires are just tiny. You got to get a razor and just kind of really lightly cut the cover just enough to get it to start. Nothing your teeth can't fix. Get the red one ready to go. There we go. So these two wires essentially are going to go together. And so the red and the red and the black and the black on this. This is the output from the receiver switch, right? Let me go ahead and strip these as well. That way I can get a connector on these and then go ahead and mount the valve in the box. And then when I'm ready to put that on the connector, and I think what I'll do is I'm going to put these on the receiver before I mount it in the box. And this wire is just so dainty that you got to be careful not to break it, both on the light and this valve. So when you're stripping the sheath off the wire and then you're trying to twist the wires, just got to use care. All right, I'm going to go ahead and twist these blacks together. I know it's hard to see what I'm doing here, but if you've ever put electrical connector on, that's pretty much it. That's all I got going on right now. Helps to have a good crimping tool, I'll tell you that right now. That's something you got to have. All right, just doing the second set now, and I'll be ready to go here in a sec. All right, there we go. All right, so that essentially is ready to be connected. All right, now the next thing I'm going to do is I've prepped some, next thing you got to think about is how are you going to, keep everything in the right place inside the box. And what I'm going to do, now other guys I've seen are using double stick tape. And that's a great idea, but I'm going to take it a step further, and I'm going to use Velcro with the same kind of sticky tape on one side. And that is if this valve ever goes bad, I can replace it easily. The double stick tape, man, when it gets on there, it's a bear to get off sometimes. So I'm going to use Velcro. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the furry side on the valve and the hook side on the box. So you can see I'm going to use 2 strips because I got the room and I want it to be nice and secure. So, and this tape is pretty cheap. All right. I can show you. So it comes in a roll like this. So it's got, the hook on one side, the pile on the other. If you're ever in the Air Force or Army or Navy and did parachuting, this is called hook pile tape. But anyway, it's Velcro. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the hook side and I'm going to put it, basically, I'm going to put it on here. And then when I'm ready to mount this thing, I'm going to peel off this. And then when I peel it off so that the sticky tape of the hook side is exposed, and then it'll basically be put in the right spot. And I was thinking about putting some on the bottom here. See, I think I'm going to put 1 strip on the bottom too, so it'll be connected on 2 sides here. All right, so that's the general idea inside there like that. So I'm ready. I'm going to go ahead and strip this backing off. Make sure my hook is in the right spot. It's got to be perfect. That one looks good. This one is definitely off. All right, so let's take the sticky side off these, and I'll be ready to place this thing in. So I got to kind of be dynamic move here. Stick it on the bottom and the side at the same time. There we go. Looks pretty good. All right, so now these are ready to go. I think next thing I got to do is put some connectors on this. And oh, you know what? Man, I almost forgot. I got to drill 1 more 3/8 hole in the bottom of this thing for my power wire. So the power wire, I'm going to have it just come right out of the bottom, right? So right out of here. And so as you're looking at it, power wire will come out down here and then go to my battery. Actually, I've got an upfitter switch that I'm going to connect it to. So let me go ahead and drill the hole for that. so now it's just a matter of getting stuff connected up. And so I'm doing the same thing with the receiver, right? So I'm going to put the receiver in here like that. And then obviously you hook all the wires up to it. So, but I think what I'll do is I may try to make all the connections out here and then place it in. So let me get this tape kind of set and ready. All right, so some more Velcro tape on the back of this thing to hold it in place. I think I got enough room for 2 of them. All right, pretty happy with the way this is turning out so far. Put these on here so I don't lose them. All right. So for my output, I can go ahead and connect those bad boys up. Got them ready to go. All right, so remember, negative is on the outside terminal, positive is on the inside terminal. So black on the outside, and red on the inside terminal. All right, that is ready to go. All right, so one of the things I'm going to do here is I went ahead and put another connector on here. These wires were kind of short, so I wanted to, make them a little longer. So I put this heat shrink connector on it. Basically spliced the wires together, crimped it, and then put the heat shrink on it. And now it's really nice and sturdy. Same thing on this one, just to extend it a little bit. Now I want to strip these wires down. The black goes to the negative, red goes to the positive, and then on the power wire coming through, and I want to show you what I'm using for this. So for the power wire coming in, I've got these pigtail connectors. So essentially they come like this, and what you do is you cut them in the center, right? So that both of your pigtails are the same length. All right, so now you got 2 sides. Now, what this is great for is that if you ever have to remove the box, all you got to do is unplug this connector and the battery power cables are still there, and you didn't have to cut them. It's a quick disconnect. You can pull the whole box off if you need to work on it, and then be able to connect it back up again. So, and then the only other thing I'm going to add to this, and I'm not doing it here, but just to show you, I've got a inline fuse, and this is a 15. I'll probably bump it up to a 20 amp fuse. 15 is probably okay. And same thing here. You just cut this and you splice it into the power wire onto in line with your battery. So your battery cables will come in, you'll have an inline fuse already protecting the system. So that's what this is for. And you know, I can go ahead and cut this so you've got a better idea. And then that'll get spliced onto here. And I'll use the same kind of connectors with the heat shrink so that it's weatherproof. But essentially it's going to go like that. You got your inline fuse, and this goes into the box. And I may need to lengthen those wires too. The trouble with these things is that sometimes you don't have enough wire. So there you go. That's going to go to the battery, right? Or to in my case, in the F450, I'm going to send it all the way to the upfitter switch so that I can actually control power to this unit from inside the truck. I'll just, you know, at the end of the day, I can switch it off, and that way I don't have to worry about this thing running my battery down. Not that it would, but just to be safe. So these wires are long enough, but I think my power wire coming in is not going to be long enough. So I'm going to have to put a couple of pigtails on here, and then I won't bore you with that. I'll go ahead and cut the video, splice these wires, make them a little longer, and then just before I put this transmitter in, or the receiver in, then we'll kind of cut back in and show you all the connections and stuff. So hang on just a sec. All right, I'm back. I spared you guys from me being on the struggle bus, getting some of these screws put on here. But hey, I managed to get it all put together. And so, you know, just like how I had it set up on the bench before we got started, all the wires are in place. You know, that's why I put it on the bench. I don't have to bore you guys about me putting it together here. But essentially, what I'm going to do now is I'm ready to place this receiver inside the box, and then really I'm done, except for you know, hooking up the actual hoses on the truck and then connected the battery, and it'll be ready to go. So take off these Velcro sticky covers and place this thing inside there. Talk about being on the struggle bus. This is sticky stuff. So that's why I didn't want to use double stick tape, because that would be twice as hard. So everything essentially, I routed everything. This is the connector for the switch. You know, this is the light. So really nothing's going to be on the outside. I just got to place this receiver in here. And there you go. You can kind of see how everything's laid out. And now all I got to do is connect the switch. And I just need to see how that thing is in there. All right. Go. Bam, that's in. All right, so see the wires are, you know, still pretty nice in here. Just kind of curl them around in spots, and nothing's really getting in the way. And then what I do is just kind of S-fold this strobe light in there. You know, put your gasket on. And this gasket, really, you can kind of place it. If you see on the lid, there's kind of a groove that it fits in. You can just kind of put that in the spot, and then put that down and put your screws in the lid, and essentially you're ready to go. You got your on-off button here, your strobe, the power coming out, and then these holes are where your hose. You got your inlet hose and your outlet hose, and bam, that's it, man. Hope you guys got something out of it. I know I did, and you know, good luck.